My mom called me selfish for not paying her bills, after I paid her rent for years. So I changed my number and left her on read. I've always been the responsible one in my family, the one who stepped up while everyone else looked away. I'm 29 now, but this started way earlier than it should have. My mom raised me and my younger brother Noah all by herself. My dad split when I was 8. No explanation. Just a voicemail saying he couldn't handle it anymore. From that day on, my mom looked me dead in the eye and said, "It's just us now. We're a team, okay?" At the time, it felt like a badge of honor. I started picking up responsibilities like they were survival gear. By the time I was 16, I was working part-time at a grocery store and handing over most of my paychecks to help with rent, groceries, and Noah's school fees. Meanwhile, Noah, 4 years younger than me, was never asked to contribute. Not once. If he left his backpack in the middle of the floor, I was told to pick it up. If we ran out of money for dinner, I was told to figure it out. I'd ask, "Why can't Noah help?" And she'd snap back with, "He's just a kid." I wanted to scream. So was I. My mom used to call me the man of the house, but every time she said it, it sounded more like an order than a compliment. That phrase stopped feeling proud and started feeling heavy, like chains disguised as a crown. Looking back, I didn't realize I was being conditioned. Every good deed turned into an expectation. Every sacrifice quietly became mandatory. But at the time, I believed this was love, helping her, providing for her, sacrificing for her. I thought that's what good sons did. What I didn't know was that wasn't love. It was leverage. And one day, she'd use every ounce of it against me. When I got my first real job at 21, an entry-level IT support role, I thought things would finally get easier. I wasn't making a fortune, but it was enough to cover my own rent, food, and still have a little left over. But leftover didn't really exist in my family.
Because somehow, even without asking, my mom expected it. She never said it directly, but the expectation hung in the air like smoke.
Every phone call ended with a sigh. Every "how are you" was followed by, "It's just been hard lately," and I'd fold every time. I'd send her a few $100 just to help, telling myself it was temporary. That once Noah graduated, got a job, found his feet, I could start saving for myself. But Noah dropped out of college in his second year. No explanation. Just, it wasn't for me. He crashed the old Corolla my mom had let him drive, and when she called me in tears about the towing fees, I Venmo'd the money before I even processed what was happening. That was the unspoken deal. I earn. Noah learns. Mom suffers. And I fix it. And it never mattered if I was drowning in my own problems. When I got hit with a surprise dental bill, I postponed it. When I wanted to take a coding boot camp, I couldn't afford it. But when my mom needed her utility bill covered, suddenly I found a way. I kept thinking, once I save enough, I'll move into a better place. Maybe travel. Maybe invest. But every time I got close, another emergency popped up. A broken fridge. A late rent notice. Noah needing a little help with books. The money was never enough, and neither was I. And yet I still believed, maybe foolishly, that loyalty meant staying. Until one day I realized I was the only one who'd signed that deal. Guilt was the currency my mom traded in, and she spent it like she had an unlimited supply. It didn't matter how much I gave, time, money, emotional support. There was always a new bill to pay, and the price was always my peace. Anytime I paused or hesitated, she'd hit me with the classics. "After everything I've done for you," or I guess I raised a selfish man. It wasn't loud. It wasn't screaming. It was quiet, weaponized disappointment. When I started dating Jenna, things got more complicated. She was smart, grounded. She worked in finance and knew how to stretch every dollar. For the first time in a long time, someone was asking me how I was doing. We'd plan little weekend trips, nothing fancy, just time to breathe. But every time I mentioned travel, my mom would drop a guilt bomb. "Must be nice to have that kind of freedom," she'd say. Or, "I don't even remember the last time I had a real vacation." I remember one night in particular. Jenna and I had booked a cozy cabin out of town for her birthday. We were packing, and I got a text from my mom. "The brakes on the car are going. I don't feel safe. Not sure what to do." I didn't even tell Jenna. I just canceled the Airbnb and sent the money to my mom. When Jenna found out, she wasn't even angry, just quiet. Later that night, she asked, "Are you supporting your mom? Or sponsoring her?" The question hit me harder than I expected, because deep down I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I was afraid. Afraid that if I stopped giving, she'd stop loving. But even I couldn't ignore how one-sided this love was becoming. When my mom's rent got raised out of nowhere, she called me crying like the world was ending. They're going to evict me. I don't have anywhere else to go. What kind of landlord does this to a single mother? I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, heart pounding with panic, like it was my lease on the line. I told her I'd figure something out, even though I was already scraping by. A week later, I signed a lease in my name for a small apartment closer to her job. It wasn't ideal, but the rent was manageable, for now. I handed over the keys and swallowed the lump in my throat as she hugged me and whispered, "You've always been my rock." Meanwhile, Noah was couch surfing with a friend, figuring things out like he always did. Mom never once asked him to contribute, not even for groceries, and me? I was now paying 2 rents, mine and hers. I worked over 60 hours a week between my full-time job and weekend freelance gigs. I started saying no to dinner plans with Jenna, skipped 2 of her friends' events, and pushed back renewing my own car insurance just to keep up. I told myself it was temporary, that once things settled, I'd get back on track. But even in that moment, signing legal documents, adding more weight to my back, I felt something shift. A voice in my head whispered, "This isn't what love is supposed to feel like." But I silenced it. Because every time I questioned the dynamic, I'd hear her voice, "If you won't help your own mother, who will?" And that line? That guilt-laced trap disguised as gratitude? It kept me bound far longer than I care to admit. On my 28th birthday, I didn't expect fireworks or gifts. I've never been that kind of person. But I thought, maybe a phone call, dinner, something. I called my mom that morning just to say hi. She sounded distracted. "Oh, honey, I'm exhausted." Didn't sleep well. "Let's do something next week, okay?" I told her it was fine, that I understood. But I felt it, this hollow sting in my chest that I couldn't quite shake. That night, Jenna walked into the living room holding her phone, brows furrowed. "Hey, did you see this?" It was a Facebook post from my mom. Photos of a restaurant table covered in balloons and dessert platters. Noah was grinning ear to ear, arms around her shoulder. The caption, "So proud of my sweet boy for getting back on track. Surprise dinner to celebrate new beginnings." I stared at the screen like I couldn't read. New beginnings? Noah had just picked up a part-time gig at a vape shop. And that was worth a celebration? I didn't even know what to say. I sat on the edge of the couch in silence for what felt like hours. Jenna placed a small cupcake in front of me with one candle in it. She didn't sing. She just sat beside me, quiet, present. When I confronted my mom the next day, all she said was, "You're the strong one. Noah needs it more." Like that made it okay. Like forgetting my birthday wasn't cruelty, it was strategy. She followed it up with, "You're always so sensitive. You should be proud of your brother." But I wasn't proud. I was tired. And for the first time, I started wondering if all this strength she praised me for was just her excuse to never give anything back. A week after the birthday debacle, Jenna handed me a printed stack of papers. Bank statements. My statements. She'd been helping me organize my finances, something I'd been too tired to do myself. And that's when she noticed it. Page after page, there were charges from food delivery apps, online shopping sites, and even streaming services I'd never signed up for, all linked to the account I used to transfer money to my mom. "Look," Jenna said gently, "I'm not trying to make things worse. But this isn't just rent." My stomach dropped. I stared at the printout, scanning totals that added up to hundreds, maybe thousands. There were weeks I skipped groceries for myself so I could help, and she was ordering takeout 3 nights in a row, so I called her. Calm. Cold. Calculated. Even. "Hey, Mom, I was going over some finances. I noticed a lot of spending that doesn't line up with what we agreed on." There was silence on the line, and then, "Are you accusing me of stealing from you?" I took a breath. "I'm saying this wasn't what I expected when I offered to cover rent." "I need you to cut back. I can't keep paying for all of this." That's when she snapped. "Wow. So this is what I get after everything I sacrificed for you?" "I gave up my life for you. You wouldn't even exist if it weren't for me. And now you're nickel and diming your own mother?" She cried. Told me I was being controlling. Said I was turning into one of those men, whatever that meant. Later that night, Noah texted me out of nowhere. She's your mom, bro. Chill out. I stared at the message, heat boiling under my skin. Noah hadn't paid a single bill, not once. But I was the villain for asking questions. I sent back one line. From now on, I'm only covering rent. That's it. The reply came an hour later. Just one sentence. I didn't raise you to be this selfish. 2 weeks passed after that last text. No calls, no updates. Just silence. I thought maybe, just maybe, she was processing. Maybe boundaries had finally clicked. Then I got the message. The electricity's going to be cut off. Can you send 300? It wasn't a request. It was a reminder. Like a bill notice wrapped in emotional manipulation. I didn't reply right away. I was in the middle of a project deadline at work, and frankly, I needed space. I needed to think. But 24 hours later, I got a flood of notifications, screenshots, tags, missed calls from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. My mom had gone on Facebook and posted a public status. Some people forget where they came from. I raised a son who thinks paying bills makes him God. Sad how quickly people turn on the ones who gave them life. Then she tagged Noah. He commented, "Unreal. Can't believe this. SMH, one of my aunts messaged me. Is this about you? Please call your mom." She's heartbroken. I was livid. I was humiliated. I had spent years paying her rent, fixing her car, skipping birthdays and date nights, so she could publicly paint me as some greedy, heartless monster. I left work early, drove to an empty parking lot, and sat there with my hands shaking. Then I opened my banking app. Transferred the $300, hit send. I hated myself for it, but I still did it. Then I sat in the car and cried harder than I had in years. Not because of the money, not because of the Facebook post, but because I finally realized there was no version of this where I'd ever be enough. After that day, something inside me broke. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but quietly. Like a rubber band that's been stretched too long and finally just loses tension. I stopped answering calls. Let unread messages pile up. My body moved through life, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Numb, detached. Jenna found me one night asleep on the couch, still wearing my work badge, takeout cold on the coffee table. She sat beside me and whispered, "You can't keep living like this." I blinked awake, disoriented. "I'm fine," I muttered, voice hoarse. But she just looked at me, the kind of look that sees straight through the lies you tell yourself. You're not fine. You're exhausted. You're broke. And you're bleeding for people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. Her words didn't come from anger. They came from love. And that made them hit harder. The next morning, I called my mom. I'd rehearsed the conversation in my head all night. My voice shook, but I said it anyway. "Mom, this is the last month I can cover rent. You'll need to figure things out after that." Silence. I thought the call had dropped, until I heard her breath catch. Then click. She hung up, 3 days of nothing. Then a single voice note. "I'll never forgive you. I played it once." Then again. Each time it sounded less like sadness and more like control. That night, I turned my phone face down, crawled into bed, and for the first time in years, didn't feel guilty. Just empty. And somehow that emptiness felt like the beginning of freedom. The next morning, I woke up to silence. No guilt-tripping texts. No crisis calls. Just a rare, unnatural quiet that filled my apartment like morning fog. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee, staring at my phone. Then slowly, deliberately, I opened my settings and changed my number, not out of spite, not out of rage, but out of self-preservation. Because if I didn't sever the line, she'd keep reeling me back in. I deleted the family group chat, blocked my mom, blocked Noah, blocked the cousins who only ever texted when she stirred up drama. It felt surgical, precise, painful, but necessary. Then I opened a new lease with Jenna. We found a smaller place, affordable, quiet, ours. Just one rent, one home, no ghosts attached. That night, I slept like I hadn't slept in years. No vibrating phone on the nightstand. No subconscious dread about waking up to another urgent favor. Just deep, uninterrupted rest. A few days later, my aunt called from a different number. I let it go to voicemail. She said, "Your mom's devastated. She doesn't know how to pay her bills. She says you abandoned her." I listened to it while standing by my new window, watching the traffic move calmly below. And for once, I didn't feel the impulse to fix anything. I texted back one line. I was devastated for 10 years. She'll survive. Then I put my phone down, made dinner with Jenna, and actually laughed, at a stupid movie we'd seen a dozen times. The weight was still there. The history didn't vanish, but something in me had shifted for the first time in my life. I didn't feel like a son trying to earn his mother's love. I felt like a man reclaiming his peace. I was on a lunch break at work, halfway through a bland sandwich, when I looked up and saw Noah walking toward me. I hadn't seen him in months, not since the group chat drama, not since Mom's smear campaign on Facebook. He looked thinner, eyes puffy like he hadn't slept.
Can we talk?
He asked, standing at the edge of my table like I was a stranger. I nodded slowly, gestured to the seat across from me. He didn't waste time. Mom's behind on everything: rent, electricity, internet. She's been sick with worry. I don't know how she's supposed to survive. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat, but I kept my voice even. I gave her 10 years of my life, Noah. I paid for her rent, her bills, her car. I skipped meals, canceled trips, postponed my own future. He didn't blink. Yeah, well, now she has nothing. You could have at least eased her into it. You just vanished. I stared at him, my little brother, still so comfortably unaware of what it costs to be the responsible one. She was never supposed to rely on me forever. She was supposed to get on her feet. But she made me her entire safety net. Noah scoffed, pushed back his chair. You changed, man. You used to be loyal. Now you think you're too good for us. I stood too, slowly, calmly. Looked him right in the eyes. I didn't change, Noah. I just stopped bleeding for people who treat healing like betrayal. He shook his head and walked off, muttering something I couldn't hear or didn't care to, and I stood there, letting the guilt wash over me like cold rain. But this time, I didn't rush to dry off. I let it sting. Because that pain, it finally belonged to them, not me. The holidays came, and for the first time in my life, no one called, no group texts, no guilt-laced invitations, no dramatic voicemail from Mom about how Christmas is about family, just quiet. It felt unnatural at first, like waking up in a house that used to creak and realizing it's finally still. Jenna and I cooked dinner together. Nothing fancy. Roasted chicken, garlic potatoes, a bottle of wine we'd been saving. We lit a candle, played jazz in the background. It wasn't the kind of holiday I grew up with. No chaos, no passive-aggressive digs, no tension thick enough to choke on. It was peaceful. Almost too peaceful. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. Some distant relative to show up. A dramatic email, something. But all that came was a letter, a real handwritten envelope with my name in blue ink. No return address. I stood at the mailbox, turning it over in my hands, heart pounding like it was a bomb. Jenna watched me from the window, her eyes asking if I was okay. I opened it. One sheet of paper. 8 words: I hope you're proud of what you've done. No name. No signature. But I knew her handwriting. She didn't need to sign it. I folded it once neatly and dropped it into the kitchen trash. That letter wasn't for reconciliation. It was a final jab, a dying breath of control, and as I stood there, breathing in the scent of roasted garlic and cinnamon, arms wrapped around the woman who had stayed beside me when everything else fell apart, I realized something. My family hadn't died. They'd just turned into ghosts. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't haunted. It's been a year since I changed my number. A year since I stopped trying to earn love from someone who only knew how to weaponize it. And in that time, I've rebuilt. Slowly, quietly, on my own terms. Half my student loans are gone. I wake up without dread curling in my stomach. I eat better, sleep deeper, laugh louder. I started therapy, real therapy, not just venting to Jenna at 1 a.m., and I learned that boundaries aren't cruelty. They're survival. Jenna and I moved again. Smaller space, more light. And last month, I proposed. She cried, said yes, said something I'll never forget. I'm proud of the man you chose to be, because it was a choice. Every step of the way. To walk away. To stop fixing people who refuse to grow. To unlearn the idea that love means sacrifice until you're empty. I still have days when I hear my mom's voice in my head. I gave you life. You're ungrateful. I'll never forgive you. But those words don't hit like they used to. They pass through me now, ghosts against glass. I don't hate her. I really don't. I just can't live inside her story anymore, and maybe that's the greatest freedom of all. Not revenge, not confrontation, not some dramatic ending, but peace. A quiet morning. A life I built. The last voicemail she ever left me still sits in my archive. I haven't deleted it. I don't play it either. It's just there, like a chapter I've outgrown but don't need to erase. She called me selfish for wanting a life of my own. And maybe she was right. But if this is what selfish feels like, peaceful, whole, free, then I'll never apologize for choosing it.